world, Harley Smith, and another episode. Looking forward to it again. Uh,
Okay.
been a long work week. Had a lot of stuff going on. We've been shipping out a lot of product. People are gearing up, I think, for the upcoming season. So we've been pretty busy here at our shop, and this is a nice break to come do this with you. So thanks again for joining.
My pleasure as always.
All right. Boy, we gotta start this one out. I got a real technical question or a real technical comment from a viewer, and I have to share it with you and get your thoughts because this this is addressed right to you, and probably no one else can answer this like you can. So the question from one of our viewers, or I guess it wasn't a question, could be a comment, is I wish Harley Smith was my dad.
Oh man.
Now, technically, how can that happen, Harvey? How can we make that?
My dad. Oh man. Oh man. That's funny. I've never had that one before. That's a new one.
Yeah, that is a high compliment.
Hmm. Okay. I guess. Don't know what to say to that, Brandon. Just
I I didn't
lost for
know either.
words.
Yeah, got to share that with you.
Thanks.
That was a good one. So, boy, that's a high praise there.
Okay.
So, on that topic of dads and kids, let's talk about moms and kids. Where we're on that topic. So, how can how can we take a mom plant or a mother plant and make kids? How do you do that?
Okay. Well, you want to make twins is what you really want to make in
There you go.
cloning.
There you go.
They're because every plant grown from a mother plant from a cutting is genetically identical to the mother plant. So theoretically, if you gave the plant the same exact environment, the same nutrients, same conditions, you would have identical or reproducible results. So all the superior characteristics are there. Although in reality, if there's even one little change, if you grew it in the same cuttings, same genetics, but in a different environment, it may not even look the same. You might not even recognize it because there's a genotype, which is the genes, and there's phenotype, which is the expression of those genes. So, but it's really nice though if you want quality, you want consistency, you have some superior characteristics in that mom, you're able to reproduce it time after time after time.
Oh,
Or at least pretty
yeah.
close, very similar. Where
Kind of like last
seeds,
week, we talked about that consistency, an important thing for gardeners, that consistency. So yeah, good point. So what's your cloning process? What have you found to be successful?
okay. Well, I like to start with stage zero of cloning, and that is healthy moms. So I have a specific mother plant nutrient formulated for mother plants because the needs of mother plants are different than the needs of production plants, for one. And then number two, my stage zero is 2 weeks before I take cuttings. I do a light mist, very light, low dose, light mist with kelp extracts
Oh,
at the very
imagine
minimum.
that. Imagine
That's,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
here's kelp again. You want
Yeah.
that on the shelf. Because if you do, the cytokinins in the kelp, it's high in cytokinins, it breaks the apical dominance, the top growth, and promotes lateral bud development, which is the branching, which is what you want because you want to take cuttings from those branches, branch tips. Also, the cytokinins literally pull nutrients into the tissue. They'll pull in the sugars, the amino acids, the nutrients, so that there's going to be more stored carbohydrates in the cut. So when you take the
Okay.
cutting, it's going to root earlier and be a stronger cut. If you have weak plants, weak mother plants, and you take cuttings, the longer it takes for them to root, the more chances you have for root rot or really poor roots, poor establishment, and that you see that downstream. And so a lot of
So
times
let
they
me
never really catch up.
So let me ask you, when you say a light misting or dosing of kelp, kind of what's your criteria for that? Do you just have a little spray bottle, with just a couple ounces of water, and any idea of how much kelp to put in that?
Yeah, yeah. Do just a spray bottle, a good spray bottle. You want to make sure you get good coverage, but it's just a light mist. You don't really
Hmm.
have to soak it down or anything. And I would go, when I say the low dose on your directions, you'll have
Gotcha.
low and high. I go with the low
Okay.
dose.
All
And
right.
just, and once every 2 weeks is fine. 2 weeks before you take your cuttings, or even
Hmm.
once every 3 weeks, you'll still have a noticeable improvement.
Okay. So just knowing what our application rate is on our soluble kelp and the directions, and I'm just going off my memory here. I could be wrong, but let's say we do half of a pint spray bottle, just half a pint of water in a spray bottle, and I think that would probably be probably 1/16 of a teaspoon. So that'd probably be uh, a smidgen measurement size, probably something like that. So I
Yeah,
just want to confirm the low dosing you're talking about. So I got you.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And that's really all you need. I mean, you could go a little higher, it's fine, but the low dose, really, it's all you really need. Just enough to prime the pump and to have a good effect on that lateral branch development. Um,
Okay. And one thing on that, the dosing, I know a lot of producers will spray the top of their leaves and the underside of the leaves as well when they're misting. So just another little tip that I know a lot of growers do.
mhm. Yeah, that's always a good plan. A
Yeah.
light mist. It doesn't have to be soaking. If I'm going to do something where I'm treating for a deficiency, or if I was spraying for possible insects or something, then I would make sure everything's dripping. I got drips coming off the ends of the leaves, then wait for it to dry out before I turn the fans and the lights back on so there's no extra stress. But in general, just again with this, it's just a light mist. It's
Okay.
just, oh, don't forget though, don't forget to use the yucca. You want a surfactant so that it spreads out evenly and doesn't just beat up on the leaves and leave areas where it's more concentrated when it dries.
Right. Okay. Right.
Yes.
Right.
So really,
And just a
I call that
pinch,
stage zero. So that's
stage zero.
kind of,
So just a small little dusting of yucca, a small little pinch into that spray bottle as well. We got you covered. Okay. All right.
I'll do it.
All right.
I'll do
What the next stage? Yeah, let's do the next stage.
it. Okay. Well, let me go back a half a step. I'll just give you the broad strokes on what the mother plant nutrient is. In that case, for mothers, I want to keep my nitrogen on the low side. For production plants, I want it at the higher end of sufficiency, not excess, but the higher end. But for mothers, low end of sufficiency, because nitrogen is a luxury element. You give it more than what it needs, the plant's going to assimilate it, but it uses energy. It burns up the energy of photosynthesis to assimilate the nitrates. So it reduces the amount of stored sugars in the tissue if you overdo it with nitrogen. If you have too much nitrogen, you get big cells, thin cell walls. A mother plant, you want small cells with thick cell walls. So it can store the energy, store the water and nutrients until it's able to recover and make roots and grow on its own.
Great
So
point.
it's
Great
just a
point.
real simple, like 1-to-1 potassium to nitrogen ratio in the lower end. Not deficient. We don't
Mhm.
want that, but on the lower end, not on the high end.
Good.
So I guess that's, I don't know, a little before stage zero. So if you grow really healthy moms, then healthy mom, healthy clone.
Okay. Yeah. And you put that very well. The lower part of sufficient. That's a
The
great,
lower end.
great explanation for that. All right. Good advice.
Okay, so taking the cutting itself, piece of cake. Both of us know how to do that. I made We've done thousands and thousands of clones in our lifetime, I assume. Um, First thing is, well, there's a few tips there. You're going to get better results in general if you're using the cuttings from the lower or middle branches instead of the very new growth at the top. Now, I do them from the top too. I mean, a lot of us do. Remember, the top growth are net importers of carbohydrates. The older growth are net exporters. So it's a little bit better results if you take it from a little lower in the plant, as long as you have a nice healthy tip. So it's choosing. The next step would be choose where you're going to take your cuts. If you take it from the top, it's still going to root, but often it takes, twice as long to root. Let's just get lucky and oh wow, it rooted like nothing. I say, what's Harley talking about? It always works for me, but no, just in general, a little bit lower in the plants is better results.
Okay.
So next step would be choose the section of the plant to take the cutting, and you want the new growth too. You don't want it too woody. You don't want to go down too far because that woody part is dead wood. So you still want the top. You want at least choose, I would say 4 nodes, so you have something to work with there. Cut below a node. The node that you're choosing is where the node is where the leaf attaches to the stem, basically. Cut right below there. The general rule is you cut at a 45-degree angle. Do you have to? Maybe not. But if you do, you get a little more surface area for roots. So yeah, I do 45-degree, and then remove the bottom leaves. So all you need is a couple of leaves at the top, smaller ones. If you just get big leaves at the top, you're going to want to cut those back so you don't have as much surface area. You don't want the plant putting its energy into maintaining the leaves. You want the energy to go into making new roots. So you don't need a whole lot of leaves, a lot less than what people think.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, that's great advice. I don't have anything to add to that. I mean, that was that was good,
so you
great
choose it, you
advice.
take the cut, prepare it, and I like to use a cloning gel. I used, of course, I used to be the director of research for a company that actually imports and manufactures Clonex. And
Mm-hmm.
so, oh yeah, so I learned about it early on. It has a cellulose base, so it kind of seals the wound. Well, I
Mm-hmm.
guess I'll say this too. Make sure, as a tip, make sure you use a sharp instrument, either really sharp scissors, or better yet, a razor blade or even a scalpel to take the
Mm-hmm.
cut. You want a surgical cut. Because if you have sort of dull scissors and you take that cut, you're squeezing, as
Mm-hmm.
it's cutting, and then when it unsqueezes, it wants to pull air into the vascular system. If you get a bubble of air in there, it blocks the uptake of water, and
Mm-hmm.
it'll wilt. So sharp surgical cut. Dip it in your cloning gel. It doesn't have to be a cloning gel, obviously. Um,
A
if
lot of
it's a
our
hard
organic
to
guys
do,
uses aloe vera, like fresh aloe vera as an
yeah,
organic replacement, yeah, for Clonex or
okay.
whatever.
Okay. Yeah, there's some other things you can use, even willow water. I know I've heard of
Yeah.
some organic gardeners doing that. Um, and even if it's an easy to clone, you don't even need anything. I mean, it's going to root. It's going to, because the auxins are going to, just going to start to, by gravity, start to go down to the bottom of the stem and accumulate in the cut, and then it's going to tell the plant make roots. So I've been in commercial facilities. They stopped using all root stimulant or yeah, all gels because they were getting with healthy moms, super
Mm-hmm.
healthy moms, high bricks, you know, really strong and vibrant. They're going to root. You're going to root fast.
That's right.
But I've always used it simply because I learned about it and I think it's helpful. So it's just part of my standard operating procedure to do
Mm-hmm.
that. I let it sit just a little bit to coagulate. And then a little later on, when the callus will form on the cut end. And when you see that callus, you know the conditions are right to make roots. So at that point is where I use a, a root stimulant.
Right. The root stimulant. While we're on that topic, we have a cloning powder at Kelp4Less.com. It's become very popular, and it's got a little bit of kelp in it. It's got very low doses of uh, some phosphate, and it also has a microbial blend just for rooting. And we actually base it in our silica as well. And so anyway, we've had really good results with our cloning powder at Kelp4Less. It's become very
Okay.
popular. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But the key, healthy mom. I mean, if you got healthy moms, they're going to root fast, and
Mhm.
you're going to be really happy. Um, One thing, I don't know if you ever use the clone machines, or do you always put into a soilless mix or something?
No, personally, no, but we have a lot of customers and a lot of operations I've been to that do it that way. Yes.
What growing medium do you use to stick your cuts?
As far as me personally,
Yeah, yes. Yeah.
yeah. So, uh, me personally, we've I don't even know the brand name or what it is. It's kind of like a cocoa cube.
Hmm.
Um, a cocoa cube. I can't even remember what the name is or whatnot.
Okay. Yeah,
And
there's a
then
few
we
different
soak
kinds.
those, and then we soak those in our cloning powder solution.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of things you can use. Some people will even use like a 50-50 perlite vermiculite mix. That
Mm-hmm.
works fine because the vermiculite holds a little water, but the perlite provides a lot of aeration. Um, in general, I don't like sticking into soil
Mm-hmm.
because then again, you have a lot of different fungi and bacteria, and you have an open wound. I don't know. I think you're really taking your chances doing that. But if you want something a little more, it could be composted, but a little more like a composted wood or peat, like the old
Mm-hmm.
Jiffy Sevens. I like using hydroponics. I use rock wool
Mm-hmm.
as my. I'm just put it right into the cube. Cover it with
Yeah,
a humidity dome.
yeah, yeah. We've done it before with our small zeolite pebbles or zeolite rocks with perlite mixed in there as well. Kind of the same thing you described. Um, have we done that before as well? Yeah,
Mhm.
a lot of different ways to do it.
Yeah. And if I use the aero cloner, the where it's misting the bare stems, what I do is I'll use the Clonex. I'll put them all in load up my machine. Make sure I turn it off first, otherwise, to get a shower. you know, how would I know that? How many times have I done that? Okay, well, and then I wait till all of them are in, and then turn it back on, and then I wait for that a few days for that the callus to form, and then what I'll do is I'll take a kelp again. Here we go,
Uh,
kelp again.
uh,
Come on, how many uses for kelp? And I'll mix that up as at the strength that you'd use for the whole clone machine. You figure out how many gallons are there, how much would I use in the machine. But I'll mix it up into just a small little container, so it's very concentrated. And I literally, if I don't have too many to do, I'll literally squirt that concentrated kelp extract right onto the bare stem and let it drip down on each one.
okay.
Because I know it's gonna wash off
Yeah.
into the clone machine. But I want it nice and concentrated there because of the hormones in the kelp, the auxins that tell the plant to make roots. Now that, and then the cytokinins, which is high in, tells the plant make more roots. But you have to have roots, at least microscopic roots for the cytokinins to work. So I wait until the callus, then I spray it on there, close up the machine, turn it back on. Don't forget to turn it back on. I've done that too. And go back, walk away. Don't keep checking it all the time. Just go away for whatever, 5 days or a week even. And then when you come back and open it up, it's going to be loaded with snowy white feathery roots.
That's a great tip. So you actually let it run down the stem. You kind of soak up the stem with the kelp solution and let it just run down the stem, close it up, and walk away.
And then turn it on. Yep.
Wow.
Turn it on. It's going to wash off, but I know I get a heavy dose right there on the callus where those microscopic root hairs are. Because with hormones too, it doesn't have to be in contact for a long time. A few seconds will do the job. 30 seconds, maybe,
Boy, that's a great tip. Yeah, that's a great tip. I'm gonna add that to our label. Directions for use.
If you have a lot of clones to do and you can't just sit there and squirt everyone, I'll squirt every single plant. Get pretty good at it. Well, watch it run down the stem. But you could probably put it in a spray bottle and just spray, and it would have the same kind of effect. But I just squirt on each one, and then what's left what's left, of course, I just pour it into the clone machine because I already have it measured for the clone machine.
Okay.
And then just let it do its job.
Now this is getting exciting.
And some of these things, Brandon, are kind of splitting hairs. Really, is it? You need to do that? Oh, here's one more split hair, though. I remember this one from the professional cloners, say, overseas. That's what they do. They make clones. They would rather take cuttings at the end of the day, not first thing in the morning, at the end of the light cycle. Because during the day, plants are doing photosynthesis and they're building up sugars. They're building up starches right there in the chloroplasts where you're going to take the cut. So they take it at the end of the day. And then overnight, what they would do is they would literally put them in a walk-in refrigerator, store them in a cooler overnight, send them out the next morning. They say they get better results than if they took the cutting in the morning and sent it right out.
Interesting.
Because there's respiration going on. The plants are storing up with photosynthesis, but they're burning some of those stored sugars overnight. So the sugar level is going down overnight. So I'm not saying to put it in the refrigerator and send it. I'm saying take it at the end of the day when the sugars are highest, and then do your cut and do your sticking your cuts right then.
Okay. Interesting point. Yeah. Hey, little things can make a difference sometimes. That's very interesting. Okay. Good advice.
Yeah. The little things is going to make, like you take it in the morning, it's not going to work. Take it at night. Well, no, it's not like night and day. It's not like right and wrong. It's just little things that I can learn from professionals and try to apply it to my own garden.
I like it. Boy, good stuff. Okay.
I guess the other thing is when I take the cuts, sometimes I want to put a humidity dome on, because there's no roots. It has to rely on the stored water and sugars and nutrients. So I'll put a humidity dome on. Sometimes I'll even do a light mist, even with just water, very light mist. Don't soak them at all. And then put the dome on, and that should be fine. And then after a while, though, I'll start to open the dome or crack it so that the humidity doesn't stay too high for too long. I've kind of noticed if I keep way too high humidity, like 98% for too long, the plants will tend not to make roots because they don't need the water. It's like, oh, I'm okay. I'll just sit here. But I notice if I wait a bit, I'll pull the dome off. This is me personally. And if they start to come back in a half an hour, they're starting to wilt, put the dome back on.
Okay.
If they take the dome off and they don't wilt, leave it off. I also have just maybe 4 fluorescent lights over it. I don't need a whole lot of light yet because it's not doing much photosynthesis yet. Just a light amount of light, and watch my temperatures. I want them warm, room temperature for, maybe 76, 78 degrees, but I don't want to overheat them because then they're going to try to transpire and they'll wilt. So I guess those are some of the environmental things I watch.
Right. Don't let your temperature fluctuate. Try to keep it consistent. Huh.
Yeah,
These are
consistent.
these are good pointers. These are great pointers. Yeah, very educational.
Yeah. And when I first started, I leave my lights on 24 hours, 24/7, just for the beginning, and then I go back to maybe 16, 17 hours of light. But again, the reason I do that is it tends to keep the temperature consistent. It's not going up and down. The lights are
Mhm.
on, it's warmer. Lights are off, it's cooler. You know, so
So time frame
again, that's
wise,
just what I do. It doesn't mean
yeah,
everyone needs to do it that way.
right. But time frame wise, how long do you leave it in full light? Do you leave the clones in full light
No,
generally?
it's not going to be very long. It might only be 3, 4 days. When I
Okay.
think I'm getting some roots,
Hmm.
at that point, they're able to take up water and nutrients on their own. They're going to be wanting to do more photosynthesis. They're going to be able to transpire. Then it's nice to have a little bit cooler air temperature and lower humidity. So I want to acclimate them to the environment. So I don't want to leave it that way for a long time. And you don't have to. I know a lot of growers, even professionals, that don't leave them on 24/7 at all. They just start with the light cycle, and it's fine. It works for them. I'm just saying, I just kind of like to keep things as even and the stress off as much as possible for at least that early transition period. Because remember, that's very stressful. You're take that cutting, it's separated from the mom. It's
Hmm.
separated from the roots. It's separated from the water and uptake and nutrient flow. So that's a stressful time. So once it recovers, you want to then it's able to handle whatever environment that the mother was in.
No, this is great because I'm sure a lot of our viewers and people that watch us in the future would very like to do it the way Harley Smith does it. So this is very valuable. Can't argue with success.
No, it works, but I do want to emphasize though, nature finds a way. If you have healthy moms, you don't have to baby every little tiny step. But I just want a little bit higher success rate. I'd like to see 98 to 100% rooting on my cuttings. And I'd like to see that consistently. And yeah, so I try to make it the best environment I can.
Yeah, and doing it with your methods and experience, uh, how many days do you usually take, or do you usually uh, look for to move them and put them into production?
There are quite a few variables there, Brandon. There are some cultivars, some strains that just seem to take longer. They're going to take 2 weeks. They might take more than
Hmm.
2 weeks. But
Yeah.
normally, in general, I'm looking at 10 days.
Okay.
10 days to 2 weeks. And sometimes I'm really surprised. I've seen it with have super healthy clones, super healthy moms. I've seen it root in half the time. I've seen it root in as little as 4 days, and I got roots popping out. So it's kind of there are a lot of variables there, but in general, I like to see say 10 days to 2 weeks. And there's if you take them when they're too young. Like I remember one time I visited a friend up north who had a relatively rare cultivar that he wanted to share with me, which was a real privilege to get that because I'd helped him out. But they were pretty young plants. I like to have moms that are a couple months old if possible. So they're a little thicker stems, a little more
Hmm.
established. But these were pretty young ones. There's early veg. Took the cuts. I put them into rock wool, brought them home. 10 days went by, nothing. 2 weeks went by, nothing. 3 weeks went by, nothing. The leaves started turning yellow, started falling off. And Sue came to me and said, Harley, what are we going to do? We're losing these clones. I took one look at them. I said, oh man, start over. These are never gonna do well. And she goes, we can't start over. These were that. Remember the gift that we? Oh yeah, that's right. This is all we have. So guess what I did?
Oh,
Kelp.
I know it.
Kelp.
I know
It's like the answer for everything. No, but I did a combination of kelp, humic acid, and some yucca. And I'm not exaggerating here. We did one light mist. 2 days later, roots were busting out of the bottom of those blocks.
Hmm.
2 days
Wow.
later, because they just didn't. The auxins are manufactured in the leaves, and then they're transmitted to the roots. The cytokinins are manufactured in the roots and sent to the leaves. So since we didn't have roots, that flow was not happening. So we did the foliar. It gave a little kickstart with the auxins. Boom. That's all it needed was just that one little charge, one time, to get the whole process going.
Oh, that's a great one. That's a great one. So overall, to kind of sum up your time frame is don't be in a hurry. Let
Right.
let them get to the point where they're ready. You don't have to push it. You don't just make sure they're mature enough, and that could be 2 weeks, it could be 3 days, it could be whatever it takes. Don't try to rush it.
That's right. And don't just look at it all the time. Leave it alone. Let nature take its course. Be patient, and the plants will reward you for that.
Well, now you're all primed up for your cloning class tonight. I know you mentioned
Yeah.
you got a class tonight on cloning, and we
Yep.
just happened to decide to talk about that today. So, yeah, good lesson. No, that's good advice. Thanks for sharing.
No, you're welcome. Good to be here. I guess I'll see you next week.
Okay, we'll do it. Thanks again.
Enjoy the sun. Enjoy the fishing in Arizona.
We'll try. I'll try. We'll do our best.
We're all jealous. All right. Have a
All
good one. See you next week.
right, see you.